Okay, ethics and documentation in engineering writing. Imagine you are working as an engineer and you write a technical report for a company or for a research project. In that report, you include information from book, journals, articles, or websites. Now ask yourself, how will reader know where that information came from? This is where documentation becomes important. And today we will discuss two very important aspects of engineering writing, documentation and ethics. These two topics are closely connected because whenever we use information from others, we must acknowledge it properly and follow ethical standards. At the end, you should understand how to cite source, how to prepare reference list, and why ethical writing is essential for engineer. Okay, let's begin by understanding what documentation actually means. In engineering research, we rarely work completely alone. Most of the time, we rely on information of many sources, such as textbook, scientific paper, and technical report, or even interview with the expert. So whenever we borrow information, we must document the source. Documentation is simply mean telling the reader where the information came from. So now let's ask ourselves a question. What happens if we use someone else's work without mentioning the source? Exactly. This would be considered plagiarism, which is a serious ethical violation. So, when we use someone else's work without mentioning the source, it's called a plagiarism. So documentation serves several important purposes. First, it protects intellectual property. When we cite the original author, we give them the credit of their work. Then, documentation strengthens the credibility of our research. Readers trust our work more when they see that it's supported by reliable source. And documentation allows readers to verify the information themselves. So documentation is not just a technical rule. It's a key part of a professional honesty in engineering communication. So, different academic fields use different documentation systems. In engineering and scientific writing, the two most common systems are ABA style and IEEE. ABA style is widely used in academic research and university assignments. IEEE style is very common in engineering journals, especially in fields like electric and computer engineering. Each system has its own rules of how citations appear in the text and how references are written at the end of the document. So, we will focus on IEEE style in this lecture, but it's important to understand both. So, let's first talk about ABA style. ABA style stands from the American Psychological Association, but the style is widely used in many scientific disciplines. In ABA style, citations include the author's name and the publication year. For example, Smith, 2022. Another important feature of ABA style is that the reference list is arranged alphabetically by the author last name. So if you have many references, they are ordered from A to Z. This system helps readers quickly find source based on the author names. So let's take a look about IEEE style. IEEE stands for the Institution of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. Unlike ABA style, IEEE use numbers instead of author's name in text. For example, the results show significant improvement in material strength between a bracket 1, that means it's a reference number 1. These numbers correspond to number list of reference at the end of the document. This system is often preferred in engineering because it keeps text shorter and cleaner. As we can see, here's an example of ABA style. Here's appear the author last name, and ETAL means there's more than two authors in this paper or in this publication. And here's another example. And here's an example of ABA style citation if we take it from a book. So, and the reference list at the end of the paper, as we can see in ABA style, the reference order from A to Z. And here's an example of IEEE reference style. We can see that we used a number list. Instead of author name in the text, we use a number. So number 1 will appear in the reference list. So references are listed in order of their first appearance in the manuscript. Okay. Beside ABA style and IEEE, other documentation systems also exist. For example, Modern Language Association, commonly used in humanities, and Chicago Manual of Style, used in publishing and historical writing, and Council of Biology Editor, used in a biological science. However, since we are studying engineering writing, the most relevant style for us are ABA style and IEEE. Now, we will discuss how citation appear in IEEE style. In IEEE style, citation appear as a number inside a square brackets. For example, the increase in atmosphere carbon dioxide has significantly affected the global temperature pattern. So in bracket, we used 3, which means it's the third reference in the manuscript, and it's reference number 3. And it will appear in the reference list at the end of the paper or at the end of the manuscript with number 3. You can place the citation at the end of the sentence, or sometime you can insert it within the sentence. Another example, according to recent research, between a bracket, number 4, structure analysis results indicate that the material can withstand a higher stress level. This number correspond to the reference list at the end of the document. So, sometimes we need to refer to a specific page, such as reference 8, page 27, or reference 11, page 24 until 28. So if we refer to multiple source in the same sentence, we separate them with a semicolon. This helps reader understand exactly where the information comes from. So let's take example of well-documented research section. Notice that every piece borrowed information must include a citation. This is very important. Students sometimes forget that even the idea, not only direct quotation, must be cited. If the idea comes from another author, the source must be acknowledged. This one is the most important principle of academic writing. So based on this, let's review why documentation is so important. It's helped us give a credit to original author, and it's helped us avoid plagiarism, copyright, and support our research with reliable evidence, allow reader to verify the information. So documentation is not just about formatting reference, it's about maintaining academic integrity. At the end of research paper, we include a reference list. In IEEE style, references are arranged in order to which they appear in the text. This means the first source cited become reference number 1 and the second become reference number 2, and so on. Also, we need to note that the author name are written using initial instead of full first names. These formatting rules help maintain consistency across engineering publication. Here's an example of the reference list according to the IEEE style. As we can see, the author names, then after that, the name of a paper, then we include the journals, include the pages, and the year this article published. So we need to understand that the ABA style reference listed alphabetically by the author last names. And here's some example how to write the reference in the reference list. And in IEEE, references are listed numerically according to the order in which they appear in the text. And here's some example how the reference appear in the reference list. So, another important point you need to know that even though we have a standard citation style like APA style and IEEE, many journals have their own reference formatting rules. When submitting a research paper, conference paper, author must always check the journal author guideline. If the references are not formatted correctly, the journal may ask the author to revise the paper before review. So always follow the specific requirement of the journals. Managing reference manually can be difficult, especially when writing a large research paper. That's why many researchers use a reference management software. These tools allow us to organize research source, insert citation automatically, and generate reference lists in different styles. And it saves our time and reduce the error. And some of the most popular reference management tools are Zotero, Mendeley, EndNote. These tools connect directly with a Microsoft Word or Google Documents. This means you can insert citation with a single click, and the software automatically updates the reference list. For researchers who write many papers, these tools are extremely useful. And now, let's talk about ethics. Engineering writing is not only about technical accuracy, it's also about ethical responsibility. Engineers must always present information honestly and accurately. Some common ethical violations include plagiarism, copyright, fabricating, and failing to cite information source. Each writing protects both the research and the public. So, one of the most important problems is plagiarism. And the plagiarism occurs when someone uses another person's work without proper credit. This can happen in several ways. For example, copying text without citation, using someone else's idea without acknowledgement, even copy diagrams or tables without referencing the source. Plagiarism is considered intellectual theft, and it can lead to serious academic penalties. So, how we can avoid plagiarism? There are several simple rules. Always cite the source when using someone else's work. Use quotation marks when directly quoting text. Paraphrase idea using your own word. And always include the source in the reference list. By following this step, help maintain academic honesty. So at the end, ethical engineer communication requires honesty, transparency, and responsibility. Engineers must report data accurately and avoid misleading readers. Remember that engineers' decisions often affect public safety. Therefore, ethical communication is not just academic requirement, it's a professional responsibility.